So you want to start off with a slip knot, and then you take the longer tail, so you have a short tail, a long tail. Take the yarn that's connected to the yarn ball, and you're going to cast on. So you're going to hold the yarn in your palm just loosely, wrap it around your thumb and forefinger, and then put your needle into that spot right there and pull. You don't want to pull too much, too tightly, but just pull enough so that it's snug. So I've got the yarn here wrapped around thumb and finger, and then just right through like that. Then you can just cast on as many stitches as you need for your project. Again, just holding it loosely in the palm of the hand here, wrapping it around the thumb and forefinger and into that hole right there. Then when you're ready to knit, you'll take your needle and put it in the side of the hole, pointing towards the back just like that. So not in the front like this, but in the back. And then you'll take your yarn, wrap that around in between the two needles, back through the hole, and then off. So into the needle, around in between, back through, and off. In the needle, around, back through, and off. In, around, back through, and off. And you'll just continue like that through the whole row. Sometimes the first row is the hardest. You want to make sure when you're pulling, you're not pulling the needles away, because then you'll get that long yarn in the middle. So you want to make sure when you're tightening up, you can even hold them both in the same hand and just pull on this to tighten it. So keeping both needles together will help kind of keep everything snug. So yeah, when it pulled apart, we had a kind of a longer one there, but it'll tighten up. And then when you start to reach the end, you'll finish up your last stitches like normal. Then you'll take the needle that now has all of your stitches and you'll flip it around to the other side. So you're always going to be knitting from your left. And if you're doing just a regular garter stitch, so knitting all of the stitches, then you'll just start this row the same way and just knit everything like normal. So if you want to do a stockinette stitch where you knit the knits and purl the purls, you'll see when we flip this over here that you can tell a purl because it has this little bar right here. So that's a purl stitch. So if you want to do stockinette, or that's what your pattern calls for, then you start your row off with a purl. So to do that, you want to tuck your needle under the yarn. So normally when you're knitting, the yarn is behind your needle. You want to make sure it's in front of your needle. Instead of going in the back like that to knit, you want to go in the front like that. And then you take your yarn and you wrap it around just like that and pull it through. And that's a purl. So again, you go in, you wrap your yarn around and back through. So in the front, not in the back or anything like that, but just in the front, wrap it around, and then you're just pulling it back through like so. And that's how you do the whole row. When you get to the end, you just purl your last stitch just like normal. So now when we flip it over, you'll see now it doesn't have that bar, and now those are knit stitches. So then you would just knit this row like usual, and then when you turn it to the next row, you'll see the purl. So sometimes if you have a hat pattern or something like that, you might have to knit 2, purl 2. So in that case, you start your knit row just like normal. You'd knit 2. Then you'll take your yarn and pull it in between, wrap it around so it's at the front of your work. And then you will purl those stitches. So 1 purl, 2 purl, and then when you're ready to knit again, you take it and wrap it to the back of your work and knit 2. Then if you're purling again, you're going in front. And so on through the whole row. And a purl is really just the other side of the knit, right? So if we purl these last 2 and turn it around, you'll see those are knit stitches because they don't have that bar. And these 2 have that bar right here. So those are purl. So that's how you know when you flip it over, okay, do I start with purl or do I start with knit? The more practice you have, the easier it is to tell the difference. But I know since I ended purling, I need to start knitting since it's the other side. So then I would knit those 2. Then you can look, those 2 have the bar, so I purl, put the yarn in the front, purl 1, purl 2, and then put my yarn in the back. So then when you're ready to cast off, what you're going to do is you're going to start off by just knitting 2 stitches, and then you want to lift the bottom one over top of the second one. So then knit 1 more. Again, take your needle, slide the bottom one over top of the first one. Again, knit 1, take the bottom one, slide it over the top, just like that. And you can see that tail starting to form right here, and that's cast off. So if you want to cast off in pattern, we'll do 1 more knit here. If you are doing like a knit 2, purl 2, so like the next one's purl for instance, you can do the same thing. So you would just purl that stitch, just like normal. And again, lift the bottom one over top and off. Again, the next one is a purl stitch, so we'll purl that, lift it over and off, and then we come back to knit. So we'll move our yarn back to front and knit, and then just continue like that until we're done. And then once you reach the last one, you'll knit or purl that like normal. Slide the last one up and over. And then I like to just pull that out to make it a little bit easier. You can cut a tail and then just pull that through, and that's your piece. So this is an example of a swatch that I had made previously. You can see this top part here is an example of what garter stitch looks like. So when you knit every row on both sides, it looks kind of the same. And then as an example of stockinette stitch, you can see this V pattern here. That's the right side or the knit side of the work. And on the back, the purl side looks a lot like that garter stitch. You can tell the garter stitch is a little bit thicker from the side as well. And then this top area here is knit 2. You can see the V shape of the knit, purl 2, and you can see that other pattern there. So that's an example of what you would use for knit 2, purl 2.